So we'll talk about the last thing as regards the management area or the management component of consulting, and that is about managing yourself. How do you take care of yourself? We've talked about managing your team, okay, team members, okay, other junior consultants, okay, or maybe even peers. We've talked about managing your client, how you deal with your customers, how you want to make sure that they're the center of attention as far as your businesses go. Now we talk about managing yourself. So, what are the things that you need to know as regards managing yourself or self management? Now, the term self management, along with its cousins self help and self improvement, actually means different things to different people. Okay, and now it's not our objective to try to resolve the differences. Okay, in fact, this topic permits no one best way. So, what we will be talking about in terms of how you deal with your professional life and how you deal with your personal life, there are so many materials out there that might be worthwhile to take a look into. We will just be looking at some points, okay? Some points that I feel would be important regardless of literature, regardless of who is proposing what, okay? But and for most of you who perhaps are not yet into doing consulting work, you might be thinking that okay, some of the tips that would be said here may not be applicable to you yet. But I do hope that even if you're not yet in the consulting profession, the other things that will be mentioned here would still be useful for you. So let's take a look at the first area about professional life. So, how do you manage yourself in your own professional life? Now, before we go through this, you have to understand that we're not splitting professional life and personal life as if they're two separate entities. Okay? And that's not possible. Why? You're just one person. Okay? How you are in your professional life, or sorry, who you are in your professional life and who you are in your personal life, it's one and the same person. There's no difference. Okay? The thing there is that you have to manage them both. Obviously, you wouldn't want your personal life to impact your personal life, and you don't want your personal life to negatively impact your professional life. Okay, and here are some of the things that may help you go through each facet of your life, if you may. Okay, and which I hope would still be helpful regardless of your profession, whether you're actually going to be a consultant or not. Well, there are five items here in your professional life: finding your own mentor, hitting singles. We'll see that in a while. What do you mean by hitting singles? Make your boss look good. Okay, a little bit devious. You might feel awkward about this, but we'll talk about that in a bit. An aggressive strategy for managing hierarchy. So, talking to your boss, talking to your boss's boss, okay, upwards. And a good assistant is a lifeline. Okay, so if you have the privilege to have an assistant, well, definitely, how do you really extract the most from your assistant? Well, finding your mentor, I think, or a coach, is always an advantage. You always would want to learn from other people, even if you're already senior in the profession, even if you're like the superstar of the consulting profession, uh, you'll always find some advantage in having a coach or a mentor to help you become better. Okay. It's said that we cannot be a captain of our own ship, and it's important that we have somebody who can give us like a good mirror on how we can be much better as a consultant. Okay. Now, there are some companies that have good mentoring programs. Okay. If you're lucky to be in that company, that's good. If you find yourself in a company that does not have a formal mentoring program, you will probably have to take the initiative yourself and reach out to potential candidates who could be your mentor. And remember, some of them may not automatically agree to be your mentor, but if you're lucky that they agree to be your mentor, even if you don't have a formal mentoring program, that's good. In fact, you can choose mentors that are outside of your company. In fact, it can be advantageous as well. So you are not given that feeling of anxiety because the mentor might be somebody senior in the organization, right? And your career is tied perhaps to the mood of that particular senior person. If you take him or her as your mentor, it's going to be a difficult situation for you potentially, okay, in the future. So there are times where getting a mentor outside of the organization is an ideal situation. Now, hitting singles. Now, singles is a term in baseball where you just hit the ball. Okay, you're at bat, you hit it, you just won't go to first base. You are not aiming to do a home run, completing all four bases. Okay. Uh, of course, we're not advocating that you hit singles. Okay, like those who are not married, no, or hitting singles when you hit on someone, like you're flirting with someone. We're not referring to that. Okay. Now, when we say about hitting singles, okay, in the same way as this is similar to low hanging fruits, right? In as much as we want to be ambitious, we have to be reasonable with what we can do. And sometimes what's important is we just do the things that we can do at that moment. Okay. Maybe a home run is not possible now, but it's important that when you are going to hit the ball, you just hit the ball with the best that you can so that you can go to first base. If you're lucky to hit it very, very well, okay, you can go to second base. Okay? But the idea there is making sure that you do progress, right? You don't try to force yourself or hit yourself in the back that I have to do everything in one go. No, don't. Okay, do what you're supposed to do. Just get it right. Be okay with it. Okay, move on to the next, or build on it if you have to. Okay, so if you've been able to do these things very well, it helps manage expectations. Imagine that you try to do everything in one go. You might set up something unrealistic about yourself, okay? And when you fail to meet those expectations, you'll have difficulty regaining your credibility. So while it might seem very nice to be very ambitious and actually fulfilling that, okay, um, we have to understand and appreciate that unless we're really wired and built that way, okay, then the most reasonable thing to do is just accomplishing things that are just right so that you can move forward. Okay. And using the baseball metaphor, getting on base consistently, which is important, okay, as far as your credibility goes. Getting on base consistently is much better than trying to hit a home run and striking out 9 times out of 10. Okay. Now, making your boss look good. I mean, I said earlier, this might be an awkward situation. Okay, but when you're trying to make your boss look good, it's not that that's your whole intention in life, right? That you come to work because you just want to be like a slave of your boss, making sure that your boss look good. No, no. What's important is when you want to do your work well, do it in such a way that everybody above you, especially your boss, is not put in a compromising situation. You know for a fact that uh, if your boss will not look good, okay, and your boss knows that you didn't really do a good effort in making him or her look good. Okay? While it is perhaps unethical to do so, your boss can engage in retaliatory tactics. Maybe your boss would make it difficult for you to be promoted. Maybe your boss will give you a hard time in other future projects. Okay. Okay. So it's not enough that you do your best in whatever it is that's asked of you. You have to make your boss look good. Okay? I mean, perhaps making your boss look good is an indirect thing in the sense that it shouldn't be like the end all be all of your work, right? To the point that, as they say, you're doing some ass kissing, right? I mean, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, it should be that whenever you do work, make sure that your boss is not looking bad. Okay, I mean it's probably good to look at it that way. Okay, act you don't engage in efforts that will make your boss look really awkward or really bad. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, make sure that your boss is informed of whatever it is that you're doing, what it is you're doing, where it is you're doing. Your boss should be aware of the problems that you're having. Then actually you have to scale it back. I mean, you don't have to overload your boss with information, okay? But just enough to make sure that your boss understands that what it is that you're doing is actually within his or her agenda. Number one, and especially when it comes to problems, you don't want your boss to be the last person to know about the problem affecting his or her team, okay, or his or her portfolio, okay. So as soon as you start to see a problem and you think that your boss, or rather you think that the portfolio is within your boss's attention, then you should inform your boss right away of the problem, even if it will probably go away, even if you know that the solution is straightforward, okay. And I tell you, the same way as how we treat with clients, okay. Uh, if you've done good to your boss, your boss would be more often than not remember you to return that favor soon. Now, when we look at managing the chain of command, okay, the important thing here is that we have to learn to be assertive. Okay, we can't be shy, we can't be timid. Sometimes we have to be brave enough to stand for ourselves, for our own convictions. And sometimes we need to have that courage to understand that not everything will go our way. Okay. In fact, it says here aggressive strategy, but you shouldn't be aggressive to the point that you're rubbing the wrong way, right? That you're giving yourself the impression that you're a difficult person to deal with. No, but you have to be assertive. You have to present yourself in such a way that you're a professional of sound principles, that you would not compromise your principles with flimsy things, okay? And that's what being assertive means. Now, if you face a vacuum in power responsibility, fill it before someone else does. Sometimes we might be shy in taking leadership positions, but if there's an opportunity to be one, to be a leader, then don't hesitate. Go step in, be that leader. Okay. And it shouldn't make you feel that you're like ambitious. No, I mean just go ahead and present yourself to take on that charge, because your consideration is really the life of the organization. That you really want everybody to to proceed, to move forward in the absence of somebody who's leading that organization. Now, at the same time, be sensitive to the limits of others' authority and know when to step back if necessary. So it's like a push and pull thing, right? It's like dancing. You know, you don't try to be aggressive in dance, like you always take the lead and all that, and you're insensitive with how your partner is dancing. Maybe your partner is a really good dancer, so you shouldn't try to impose yourself on your partner as to how you'd want to dance. Maybe you'd want to be a little bit more fluid and flexible with the movements, or your partner may not know how to dance, so don't expect that. You know, you just force the situation, you know, and straight jacket your partner to do this or that. Okay, sometimes you'd want to coach the partner to do a little bit more. Okay, but it's really a dance. You know, when you're dealing with powers that be above you, you should learn how to dance. You should learn how to keep their agenda in mind. Okay, you should understand that. Okay, you're there because you want to be able to help the organization achieve its objectives. Okay? And if it's possible, obviously, in the course of achieving the objectives of the organization, you get something along the way. Okay. And if you're fortunate enough to have your own assistant or somebody from a staff who would take care of helping you in all the nitty gritty work, well, it's a good thing. It's an extremely, exceptionally valuable opportunity. Okay, whether they're secretaries or admin assistants or interns, okay, make sure you treat them well. make sure you treat them well. And because some of these staff members or assistants are, they could be very well educated, okay, they could be very skilled, but some of them aren't really that at your level, perhaps, okay. And this is not to demean any assistant for that matter, but it's good to be very clear with what you want and what you need from them, especially. At the same time, you also give them opportunities to grow. Okay, you want to take care of them. You want to build them up professionally as well. Okay, even if down the line you don't expect them to be leading companies, you don't expect them to be like executives in the future. Okay, so it's good. I mean, if you're fortunate to have an assistant, well, take care of your assistant. Okay, and your assistant will take care of you in whatever is needed by you in your profession. So how do we go about with managing your professional life in general? Well, one, learn how to delegate. Okay, it's important that you don't try to own everything and do everything yourself. Now, learn to delegate around your limitations. And second, making the most out of your network. Okay, so when we delegate, by this time, you know that there are limits everywhere. You know the limitation of your clients, you know the limitation of your organization, you know the limitation of your team. Okay. Once you know the limitations, you respect them. Okay. But understand also that you have limitations as well. And whenever we're doing consulting work, you can't be a one man band, as they say. Okay. And you won't last very long as a one man band. You know that in every consulting work, we will be doing a lot of things, some of them very complex, that doing them alone is actually an impossibility. We realize that we cannot do things alone. So we have to learn how to delegate, okay? Especially if we're in a position of authority to do so. We have to learn how to assign things to people, okay, such that the opportunity is maximized, meaning each one will draw benefit from that assignment, number one. Second is that they will actually produce output or outcomes that would be maximum, so to speak, that they're the most optimal options as far as outputs go. Okay, and for you, at least you're freed up to focus on more important things, especially when it comes to dealing with clients, especially when it comes to relationship management. Okay, it's not easy. I mean, dealing with clients often it's not easy. They consume time, they consume effort. Okay, they can be very draining at times. Okay, emotionally, okay, psychologically, they can be draining. So delegate around your limitations. Okay. Now, for problem solving, however, no one has yet devised a substitute for the human brain. Okay, I mean, as much as we've been used to hearing advances in artificial intelligence, okay, human ingenuity is still at its most premium. But because you can't do everything yourself, you have to develop a group of people you can rely on to help you shoulder the burden. Now, it can be your official team, or it can be your informal network, friends, colleagues that you consult every so often. Even your mentor, as we said a while ago. Okay, they can be part of your informal network. Now, once you found these people, I mean, don't let them go. Take care of them even, no? And exercise quid pro quo as well. And if they are going to ask something from you, well, help them out also. If that's not even an immediate possibility, well, give them something, maybe a token for the work that they've done. But the idea there is don't let them go. Don't be too transactional in your relationships with these people, with your informal network. Okay. And when we're talking about the network, we make the most out of it. Okay. Sometimes those portions in our network that we call weak links, okay, we can actually extract a lot of value from them. Okay. People that is known by these people, that's known by these people, that's known by us. Like how many degrees separated from us. Okay, I mean they could even be important in your network. Okay, so especially if you're working in a large organization, there's always that commonality, okay, that you can always leverage on. For example, a common culture, okay, uh, and it works with the psychology of people. Like people are attracted to similarities rather than differences. I mean, at least that's the impulse. So if you really want to make the most out of your network, well, you look for people who are similar to you, even if it's not too similar. Obviously, you want to have some diversity for some creativity, right? But you work with the similarities. Okay, work with people who might have something common with you, right? And build on that and use that as a starting point. Okay, and then you'll realize that these people can actually help you with whatever it is that you need, as far as your profession goes. Okay, whether you like it or not, no matter how broad or how weak your links are, they're part of your network. Okay, and you'll be surprised on how they can actually help you in the future. Okay, so take care of it, make the most out of it. Don't be shy in reaching out to people you probably have not talked to for a very long time. The worst thing that you can do is a no. At least you know that it's a no. They say that the answer no is not the end of the conversation, it's the beginning of the conversation. Now you know that it's a no. So you move on to other things. Okay? You re strategize, you recalibrate. Okay? The no is not the end. Okay? So let's not be scared of no's. Okay? And that's part of it. Okay? Now, networking is two-way. Okay, you get help from them. Make sure that you're prepared to actually help them in the future. Okay, and sometimes being courteous is also important, like sending a thank you note, okay, or a token for any small help that they've done from you. Okay, even if you don't expect to deal with them immediately, sometime in the future, make sure that you have all of these courtesy items in place. Okay, who knows, one day that person may be in a position to help you again. Okay? So it's a win-win for everyone. Now, focusing on personal life and how it affects your profession, perhaps a consultant. Well, there are a couple of things that we'd like to share here. This is not supposed to be like a retreat or a recollection regarding how you live your life personally. Okay, but only a couple of things. Well, surviving on the road, a consultant is always expected to go on field because they deal with clients. And if you want to have a life, you lay down some rules for yourselves and for others as well. Okay, and being disciplined about it. So let's go with surviving on the road. Okay, expect that you'll be doing a lot of field work. Travel nowadays is important, although with the recent pandemic, this has curtailed to some degree. So the road work that we're doing would be perhaps Zoom calls, okay, or Google Meet calls. Okay, they replace travel, but even Zoom calls or Google Meet calls or the like, Skype, they can be very tiring as well. Okay, perhaps more tiring than travel itself. Okay, but take a look that these opportunities of interaction with other people, see it as opportunities for growth. See it as opportunities to learn lifelong lessons from these things. Okay, but if you're fortunate to actually travel physically, well, take advantage of the cultural experience, the lessons that you can draw from the actual travel. Okay, do proper planning. Okay, so that it's not a bore. You don't harass it. Travel can be very stressful as well. So if you don't really plan well, you might spend a lot of time and effort and energy, mulling about the bad things, all that negativity swirling around. Okay, if you don't plan well. And if you're supposed to travel, okay, well, pack light. Okay, make sure your transportation is reliably arranged. Yeah, find your ways to entertain yourself. Okay, when you stop working for the day. Okay. Okay, don't let your life on the road, okay, don't let your travel become an uninterrupted cycle of working, eating, and sleeping. You draw something from it. That's how you survive on the road, on the field, when it comes to consulting. And if you want to have a life, well, lay down some rules for yourself. Okay, When you work 80 hours or more per week, that's a lot, right? There's little time left over for anything else. If you want to have a life, you do have to do a little of advanced work. Okay? And what are the ways on how to make sure that you have a life? Okay, more outside of work. Well, make sure that you have day offs, and you respect that. You block that off. You be strict about it that you don't do work these particular days. For most of us, these could be weekends, but even for some, there are certain days of the week that can be considered as holy days, right? I mean, you want to make sure that they're untouched. Okay. For some, as much as possible, you want to keep your work and home separate. Okay. Uh, Even if you're the type of person who is comfortable integrating work and home, okay, ideally you still want to have a certain portion wherein work and home are still separate. Okay. And if you do have free time, okay, rather than just keeping it free, there's that risk that that free time might be consumed for work. So what do? Make sure that when you find yourself to have a free time, plan for that free time. Make sure that you put non-work activities in that free time. Now, the thing here is that you can do all of these rules, but you also have to be flexible. Sometimes there might be needs at work that you need to take care of. Perhaps there was an emergency that might require you to go to the office, let's say on a Sunday. Well, if it's not always frequent, then that's fine. Okay? If it becomes more frequent, then you probably need to revisit how you can improve the situation, right? But there are times where you can't really avoid these things, so you just have to deal with it. Okay. Still, because you laid down those rules in the first place, you and those around you will know what to expect most of the time. So, how do you make sure that these things for your personal life are done really well? Well, respect your time. That's important. You perform some sanity checks along the way, making sure that you review once in a while. I mean, are your rules working? Is your schedule really adequate for you? Okay. And lastly, sharing the load. Okay. So respecting your time. Work is like gas, it expands to fill the time available. We said that earlier, if you have a free time, make sure you do something with that free time right away. Otherwise, work will just creep in and you've lost free time already. So you have to decide, okay, based on your personal ambitions, okay, the nature of your organization and your place in the pecking order in that organization, okay, you have to decide how much of your time you will devote for work. Now, some of us, maybe we'd like to work just 40 hours a week, 8 hours, 5 days. Okay. But for some people, depending on what they really want to do, it could be more than 40 hours. Maybe you'd like to spend more. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no correct number. There's no correct figure on how many hours per week that you'd want to spend. What's important is if you've set this amount of time per week, then whatever is left should be allocated for something else that is not work. Okay. And this may include weekends. So yeah, I know people who work portions in Sundays, but they are so disciplined enough that they know that okay, it's a Sunday, so they still spend, let's say, one half of the day for religious activities, for church perhaps, for example, for family especially. Okay. And they make it untouchable. Nobody's supposed to touch that. And they're quite disciplined about it. That's a possibility. Okay. So what's important is okay, the time for work and the time for non-work. And you have to work backwards from that number. Now, if you know that you want to work only for 40 hours a week, okay, that's as much as you can go. Okay. Now, what is left with the remaining 128 hours for that week? Well, you try to fill that up. Okay. Now, within the day, the easiest to control is the start of the day. Okay. You know how long it usually takes you to get to the office, so set your alarm accordingly. It's a little bit more disciplined as far as time management goes. Now, the challenge is at the end of the day, because by this time you're already tired, you're prone to deciding things based on emotion rather than reason. Okay. But one important tip here is you resist the temptation to do one more meeting or do one more item. If you know that you have to be done by this time, then you stop. Especially during this time of the pandemic, it can be very pervasive that we stretch our work beyond the time that we're supposed to be doing, right? If you don't put discipline in that aspect, you might realize that the meeting keeps on dragging on, okay? That half hour will become 1 hour, will become 2 hours. Before you know it, the things that you've scheduled to do as far as non work goes, that goes out of the window. Okay, and you will finish work really, really late at night. The most that you can do just sleep. Okay, and family interactions are impacted, and that's something that we don't want to happen as well. Now, as far as respecting your time yourself, you have to get others to respect your time. Sometimes they will ask you to go on meetings, let's say at nights or weekends. Well, make sure you draw the line. Okay. Uh, and you have to learn to say no. Like I said, no is not the end of the conversation. It's the beginning. Okay. And that is the same thing with you. If you say no, you're not shutting the doors. Okay. Most of the time, you're not really saying that you don't want to do it completely at all. That you're no longer helpful. That's not the correct interpretation of no. Okay. But by you saying no, you're establishing the boundaries of what you can and cannot do. And that provokes more conversation, more discussion on how you can actually be more effective. Okay. So learn to prioritize potential time commitments according to their ability to help you get things done. Okay. Also, you can make your colleagues understand that you're also a finite resource. I mean, even if you're like a superstar, you can do so many things at the same time. You're like the miracle worker of your company. Well, you're just one person. You only have 24 hours a day. You also need to sleep. You also need to eat. You also need to interact with your friends and family. Okay. So that's the important thing. You have to let other people know that you have your limits as well, and they should respect that. Now, performing sanity checks in life, as in business, sometimes you need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Okay. Changing jobs is not the only answer. However, nor is it always an option. Sometimes you need to take breaks. If you're blessed to have vacation leaves, then take vacation leaves. Use those opportunities to recharge, to replenish yourselves. Okay. And there's that danger of going through work day in day out. If you don't spend time to stop and not doing anything, it becomes difficult. Okay. It becomes difficult for you to keep on pushing forward. Okay. It could even be easy for you to lose sight of why you're doing this work in the first place, why you're in this company in the first place, what your goals are. You will have that tendency to lose sight of your objectives, both professionally and personally. So by sanity check, well, it's all about taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture every so often. Sometimes you have to take breaks, okay, and recalibrate, especially for those things that matter to you the most. Okay. And lastly, sharing the load. Okay, sharing the load means being upfront about expectations, saying that I can do this, I cannot do that, who can probably do that. Okay, and share the load also with those in the family. If you're privileged to become married as well, you share that with your spouse. Okay, what you need to do as far as things in the household happens. Okay, and this would help avoid conflicts in the family. Okay, if you're able to engage everybody in the household to share the burden with you. Okay. So if you expect to work every weekend for the next 5 years, okay, make sure your spouse knows it and is happy with it. If your spouse is not happy with it, well, find a way. I mean, make a compromise. Excuse me, make a compromise if you have to. And once you make a commitment, stick to it. Okay? Stick to it. If you've committed to go out on a date or go out with your kids, okay, to the amusement park, respect that. Okay, do everything in your powers to uh, have that scheduled. Making sure that that happens. Now, if you start to find yourselves having so many emergencies left and right, then you probably need to take a look at your priorities again. Maybe it's not the appropriate thing. Okay, so, and by making sure that you know your priorities again, well, you recalibrate. Okay, maybe there are things that may have changed. You didn't realize that they've actually changed. Okay, but always be sensitive to the frequency of the exceptions. Now, lastly, as we wrap up this topic about self management, okay, we believe that many people in the business world would benefit from lightening up a bit. Some people nowadays they call it chill, try to be chill a bit, okay, or try to be a little bit more relaxed. You know, all this talk about mental health, that's a very serious pandemic, if you may. We would really, really make sure that people would like to lighten things up a bit. Okay. So there's more to life. There's more to life than work. There's more to life with the consulting profession. Okay. And as I said earlier, it's important to maintain perspective. What's really important to you? I mean, it's good that we've all discussed the things that we need to do to become a very good consultant. But if you lose your way along the way, well, why don't you take a step back, recalibrate, restart again if you have to. Okay, and know that there's more to life than being just a consultant, right? There's more to life than work. There's more to life than one's profession. Okay, sometimes we identify ourselves too strongly with our work. Okay, and it's possible. I mean, we're just one person. We can't really separate our lives, as I said at the start. Okay, but knowing that there's more to life than just work, well, that is a good start as in terms of making sure that you're able to take care of yourself well. So with that, I end this topic on managing yourself. As usual, if you have any questions that you'd like to share with me, feel free to message me, email me, contact me, or leave a comment. Then I'll get back to it as soon as I can. With that, thank you very much for listening and see you around. Okay.